in terms of people who are listening now, if you were to tell the people who are listening 3 action steps, because this channel is all about putting the law of action back in attraction, because nothing happens unless you take action. If you were to explain what 3 actions they would take personally and professionally in their life if they wanted to start their own business, if they wanted to start making money online, for example, what would be the 3 professional action steps and what would be the 3 personal action steps that you would advise?
So 3 personal and 3 professional.
Yes.
Okay. Well, in a certain sense, there's some overlap
Hmm.
between the two, because obviously who you are is strongly connected, firmly connected to what you do. So, I mean, certainly one thing I would recommend as best as possible is to know yourself. Do your best to be as objective and open minded as possible. Assess what you want to improve and things that you are able to accomplish without much effort. Think about those things from the point of view of assessing rather than judging. Don't think of yourself as, let's say, as a simple example, being stupid or not capable. Because if you don't know something at the moment, it doesn't mean that at some point in the relatively near future that you won't know it. So I'm going to give you a little quote here from Henry Ford. And this may not be the exact wording, but what I just said is captured in this saying. If you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're right. So our beliefs have a very strong influence on what we're able to do. Me thinking that I was stupid, I proved it in a sense. I don't really mean that. But I sort of proved I flunked out of college. And I even flunked out of a college that was not really very difficult to get into. Also, an example of how our thoughts are so important. When I was in graduate school, I took a vocational testing class, which meant I would give tests to people to determine what they want to do in their life. I didn't have anyone that I could test. Now, this is graduate school, okay? This was my first master's. I took the test myself.
Wow. That's a good.
I didn't know how to interpret it. So I went to see my teacher and I asked my teacher to interpret it. And this graduate school was a very good graduate school. It wasn't Ivy League, but it was a high level, highly competitive graduate school. The first thing that the teacher interpreted from the test is tell this person not to consider going to college. They should probably do something vocationally. Now, the reason that did not upset me was because I knew, and I know. Although it was more true then than it is now, I was not a very good test taker. But my test results, whatever standardized test I would take, they were not a true, accurate reflection of my ability. And the vice president of the college that allowed me to go to night school to prove that I could do college work wrote a letter of recommendation to that graduate school telling them that exact thing. Don't pay as much attention to this person's test scores because they do not reflect his true ability. And I stand behind his ability and I highly recommend him. Okay. So getting back to your question, to
Oh,
answering your question,
it's beautiful. It's beautiful. That.
identify what you want to do primarily by the amount of passion you have for doing it, not based on how much money you can make or the prestige it'll bring you. Because, in my opinion, money and prestige follows passion. You can't make money and obviously have the prestige if you're miserable at what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Or at the very least, you can't enjoy it because eventually your unhappiness and your distress is going to cost you your mental and physical health to some degree.
It's very important advice.
Another piece of advice I would give people is to look at, in deciding what you want to do, is to look at the Occupational Outlook Handbook. That book will help people to know what the potential is for employment, what the salary is. Now, I don't know if it's possible to get, I guess you can get it in Canada. I don't know if jobs in Canada are listed though, but that's a book that's published by the Department of Labor in the United States. The other thing that I would recommend is to also look at the Dictionary of Occupational Titles. That's a book that has obviously all different job titles, and it identifies the qualifications and what you'd be doing in that job. So my short-term answer is know what you want, choose what you'll have passion for, and most likely you will have the least amount of distress in your career following those guidelines.